My name is Jeff Morgan, and this is part 2 of the hearing that I'm going to be talking about with Judge or Tyrant Judge Mary Brown. Mary Brown of the 301st Judicial District Court. Judge Mary Brown, a pretty terrible Judge Mary Brown, to be quite honest with you, from my opinion. But the case that she was ruling on is DF 1509887. Anne Georgulas versus Jeffrey Younger. The hearing date was July the 2nd. Her memorandum ruling, which really stinks, to be quite honest with you, was rendered on August the 3rd, 2021. So all objections of Jeff Younger to the motion for production are overruled. Mr. Younger is ordered to produce all responsive documents by August 15th, 2021 at 5 p.m. Mr. Younger is ordered to pay $1,000 as attorney fees and sanctions to Ms. Georgulas on or before August the 15th, 2021. There's a lot of errors in this document, as there were in the other document. I mean, this actually looks like it's being produced by somebody who's in high school without offending the high schoolers. There's a lot of just errors in this thing. But anyway, the motion for enforcement, the motion for enforcement, the court makes the following findings and orders. So here is what Tyrant Judge Mary Brown said, that Mr. Younger failed to timely make payments of child support, medical support, and interest as ordered, and only paid his past due support after the motion of enforcement was filed. I don't know if that's true or not, but evidently this is probably like about the only fact, if this is a fact, that Judge Mary Brown alluded to in any of the stuff that she's written. She just basically wings things and makes things up, as far as I can tell. The judgment awarded to Ms. Georgulas against Mr. Younger for $3,500 in attorney fees, costs, and expenses as a result of having to bring the motion. So here she is suing Mr. Younger, and Mr. Younger has to pay for being sued. This is what the wonderful Tyrant Judge Mary Brown has ruled, has awarded to Ms. Georgulas. The said judgment to be paid in addition as additional child support by Mr. Younger by August the 15th, 2021. Now, one thing to remember, I'm really kind of a little bit mystified over all of this child support, because this is Anne Georgulas. Anne Georgulas is a pediatrician, so she's a doctor. She's a board-certified pediatrician, American Board of Pediatrics. The American Board of Pediatrics certificate is recognized throughout the world. So here is Anne Georgulas, and she has her own practice. I'm really surprised that as a doctor, she needs so much money in child support. That really shocks me. I'm sure that Miss Georgulas, or Dr. Anne Georgulas, makes a lot of money. But somehow in these anti-family courts in Texas, that doesn't make a difference. Because what they do, they separate one of the parents, usually it's the father, sometimes it's the mother. They separate one of the parents from the children, and the parent who gets separated from the children pays the other parent for keeping the children that they have taken away. This is an absolutely ludicrous system, and there's no allowance really made, to the best of my knowledge, for the fact that Anne Georgulas, the doctor, probably makes a whole lot of money, a lot more perhaps than Mr. Younger makes. But anyway, this is the Tyrant Judge Mary Brown. She has awarded judgment to Miss Georgulas against Mr. Younger for another $3,500. But we have further temporary orders. Due to Mr. Younger's unwillingness or inability to follow the order designed to serve in the best interest of the child. Now, isn't this amazing? First off, you can be punished because you're unable to do something. And this is exactly what Tyrant Judge Mary Brown is doing. Due to Mr. Younger's unwillingness or inability, maybe it wasn't inability, to follow the order designed to serve in the best interest of the children, which we'll get to in just a moment. But if you are unable to do something, Tyrant Judge Mary Brown thinks that therefore you are now punishable by law because you are unable to do something. This is really pretty incredible. But then she says to follow the order designed to serve the best interests of the children. Now, once again, this is a damnable doctrine called the best interest of the children. Nobody in the world knows what the best interests of the children mean. The best interest of the child is something that is very subjective. There is no objectivity behind it. It's an opinion. It's an opinion by a judge. It's an opinion by an attorney. It's an opinion by a child custody evaluator about the only person who does not get to make the opinion about the best interest of the children is the parents. Maybe one of the parents, but not both of the parents. So this whole idea of the best interest of the child, nobody knows what it means. This is some phrase that's supposed to bring comfort to you to think, oh wow, she's acting in the best interest of the child. This is absolute nonsense. It's ludicrousy. And I think that the best interest of the child doctrine is one of the most evil things that we have actually in our anti-family courts. There was a lady who wrote a book years and years ago. She called The Beautiful Side of Evil, because if we see evil as the hideousness that it is, we run away from it. But sometimes there are things that look very, very beautiful, but they're very deadly. And this doctrine of the best interest of the children is very evil and is very deadly. So now the court finds that it is necessary for the health and safety of the children that Miss Georgulas have the following exclusive rights on a temporary basis. And once again, let's reinterpret this so that we actually see what Tyrant Judge Mary Brown is saying. She's saying that in her opinion, that the court finds it is necessary for the health and safety of the children that Miss Georgulas have the following exclusive rights. In other words, she is finding that it is necessary for the health and safety of the children that the father be kicked out of the children's lives. That is exactly what this is saying, at least on a temporary basis. We want the father to have no rights. We do not want him to have any type of rights. We're going to give all the exclusive rights to one parent. We're going to deprive the other parent of those rights. And she says on a temporary basis. How long will this temporary basis last? Well, the temporary basis could last a long, long time, and that's one of the another dirty secrets of the anti-family courts. A temporary order can last for months, even for years. But let's take a look at some of these issues that the mother alone, and by the way, she's not even the real biological mother. She carried the children, but the eggs were not even from Miss Georgulas. So, but nevertheless, because she carried the child, that makes her the mother and stuff like that. She's not a biological mother of the children. But anyway, Miss Georgulas, and once again, Miss Georgulas, the pediatrician, the confused pediatrician who wants to call her son a girl, who wants to call her son, who's named James, his legal name, call him Luna. The pediatrician who wants to present James as a girl to society and somehow thinks that's in the best interest of James. The best interest of James. I wonder if Tyrant Judge Mary Brown would think that's also in the best interest of James. It at least appears to be that that's what her thinking is, because Anne Georgulas, MD, pediatrician, has exclusive rights. The father, Mr. Jeff Younger, does not have those rights. She has the exclusive right to establish the primary residence of the children within Dallas County. She has the exclusive right to consent to medical, dental, and surgical treatment involving invasive procedures, except that neither parent may treat a child with hormonal suppression, whatever that is, therapy. Once again, this looks like it's written by a high schooler, but I don't know who typed this up, but it is what it is. Puberty blockers and or transgender reassignment surgery, if any, without the consent of the parents or court order. And the interesting thing that Tyrant Judge Mary Brown appears to not understand is that this was the whole reason this was taking place. Because Anne Georgulas, the confused pediatrician who calls the boy a girl, who calls James Luna, who presents James a boy as a girl in girl's clothing and everything else, that's what Mr. Younger was going to the court about, to stop that from happening. Even though she's agreeing with Mr. Younger, she is unilaterally and tyrannically taking away his rights to be a father to these children and granting these rights exclusively to the confused Anne Georgulas. She has the exclusive right to consent to psychiatric and psychological treatment of the children, and this is going to be very important because of who she chooses to give psychiatric and psychological treatment to the children. She has the exclusive right to give and receive child support. And this is another one of the dirty secrets. Whenever there's a divorce that takes place, there must be a child support order. So what they try to do is they make one parent a visiting parent, and because the parent is a visiting parent, the parent now has to pay the other parent money to rear the child, even though the pediatrician Dr. Anne Georgulas probably makes well more than Mr. Younger does, because she is a doctor. She's a board certified pediatrician. She should make a lot of money, but somehow it is just that Mr. Younger pay her additional money because of child support, while you take the child from the father who wants to have them, and then you make him pay money to support somebody who is basically abusing the children. And if you want my definition of abuse, when you take a boy and you dress a boy up as a girl and you pretend that the boy is a girl, when you call a boy whose name is James Luna, when you send him to school dressed as a girl, when you present him to other people as a girl, that is child abuse. That is my opinion. That is child abuse. But the abuse of, again, my opinion, Anne Georgulas has the exclusive right to consent to all medications to be given to the children, except those medications that are addressed in number 2 above. Once again, what Mr. Younger was asking for. And by the way, this whole thing has cost him over $1 million at this point, fighting to keep this from happening. But Ms. Georgulas also has the exclusive right to represent children in legal action and to make other decisions of substantial legal significance concerning the children. I wonder if that legal significance would extend to declaring a child no longer a boy but a girl, and maybe changing that on a birth certificate. I don't know, but I'm wondering that. She has the exclusive right to consent to marriage and enlistment in the armed forces of the United States. I have no idea what this means, unless they're talking about the children, which would be in another 10 years. Now remember, this is a temporary order. It's a temporary order. But, as far as the consent to marriage and enlistment in the armed forces of the United States, the children are about 9 years old right now. So it looks like she intends for this temporary order to last at least 8, 9, or 10 years. This is the exclusive right to make decisions concerning the children's education, including but not limited to their enrollment in school. This also is important because when Mr. Younger takes his son to school, there is at least one, if not more, teachers there that will change James' dress from boys' clothing to girls' clothing. This is what the school does. Mr. Younger will take the children to school dressed as boys. The school will change one of the children's clothing so that he looks like a girl. This is abuse, completely abuse. Also, now look at this one here, because Miss Georgulas, the pediatrician, she gets the exclusive right to make decisions concerning the children's haircuts. I wonder why that might be. Maybe because James' haircut as a boy does not make him look like a girl, like she wants him to look like. This is crazy. She has the exclusive right to the services and earnings of the children. She has the exclusive right to act as an agent of the children in relation to the children's estates if the children's actions is required by a state, the U.S. or foreign government. She has the exclusive right to manage the estates of the children to the extent these estates have been created by community property or the joint property of parents. The exclusive right to sign up the child for extracurricular activities. So if she wants to, she can enroll James in Girl Scouts, for example, or ballet, or whatever it may be. I've got nothing against ballet. As a young person, I took a ballet lesson. I decided it wasn't for me. Ballet can be both for males and for females. I took one lesson. So if they want to do ballet, that's fine. But, I'm wondering if perhaps Miss Georgulas might not want to help James with his social transitioning as a girl to a Girl Scouts pack. You must accept James, or I should say Luna, because Anne Georgulas has renamed James and called him Luna. And maybe that would be something that in his extracurricular activities that she would find worthwhile for James or Luna's development. Family systems counseling with Dr. Treats and children's counseling with Dr. Fletcher. Now, Dr. Fletcher, I don't know Dr. Treats. Dr. Fletcher is a very confused person from what I've seen. I was at a meeting last year on Zoom. Dr. Fletcher testified about something, and I do not have a lot of respect for her. I think she's confused. She sets protocols in place so that she can tell the court that James always appears to her as a girl, because if the mother brings James in, the mother dresses James as a girl. If the father were to bring James in, the father would dress James as a boy, and Dr. Fletcher would not want to ever see James looking as a boy. There's a lot of abuse that's going on in this counseling relationship with Dr. Fletcher, in my opinion. But this, again, is, what Tyrant Judge Mary Brown is ordering. So injunction is granted as to either party posting or allowing to be posted any information regarding the children's doctor's appointments, counseling appointments, mental health appointments, school schedule details, or extracurricular activities to persons other than parents in the case and their attorneys. The prior orders that Ms. Georgulas must notify Mr. Younger of doctors, counseling, or medical appointments or extracurricular activity for the children are lifted. In other words, they're no longer in effect. She had to do this in the past, but Tyrant Judge Mary Brown, I believe, is getting retribution against Mr. Younger. Mr. Younger was told not to speak about this, but Mr. Younger has been very vocal. He's spoken with news agencies. He's gone to legislators. There is legislation in the state of Texas to try to get this stuff changed. And I believe that Tyrant Judge Mary Brown is trying to punish him, take punitive action against him because of what he has done to bring this activity to light. In an effort to ensure the emotional well-being and physical safety of children. Now, this is absolutely ludicrous. The emotional well-being of a child, both children. Let's take a look at both children. Again, James is a boy. I've met James. I've been with James. James is a boy. James loves boxing. There are things that James loves that are boys' activities. Miss Georgulas, the confused pediatrician, decided that James had gender dysphoria at the age of 3 because he got a McDonald's toy that was for a girl. And that's what she's been pumping into his head ever since then. Miss Georgulas is not really concerned with his emotional well-being from my perspective. And nor do I believe that she is concerned with the emotional well-being of Jude. And the reason I say this is because Jude is James' twin brother. And if they take a shower together or something like that, Jude can look at James and say, well, look at, we both have penises. We're both boys. How come I have to lie and tell people that James is a girl? And if they're talking about some of these things with James, is my mom going to do this to me? I would be surprised if Jude is not completely screwed up emotionally because of what the mother is doing at this point. And remember, this abuse that the mother is committing, this is also being committed by Tyrant Judge Mary Brown. That is the bottom line fact. Mary Brown, the judge, in my opinion, she should also be investigated for child abuse, for facilitating child abuse. The court orders that all of Mr. Younger's possession period shall be continuously supervised by forensic counseling services at Mr. Younger's sole cost and expense. So once again, here's what Tyrant Judge Mary Brown is doing, telling Mr. Younger that he can only seek his children if he's being supervised by forensic counseling services, and he must pay to see his children. This, again, is another tactic that the courts use. It's very irresponsible. They try to make it sound like they're doing something, acting in the so-called best interest of the child. They are trying to financially bankrupt and ruin Mr. Younger, and they are trying to enrich their friends at the forensic counseling services. Judge Mary Brown is a tyrannical judge, and her decision in this is, again, in my opinion, completely abusive. Now, the said possession period shall be according to this or a similar schedule, shall begin immediately, blah, blah, blah. So Mr. Younger is allowed to see his children on Wednesdays from 6 to 8 p.m., and he's allowed to see them on the first, third, and fifth weekends on Saturday and Sunday from noon to 6 p.m. So this is actually a restriction on what he currently has. He was able to see them a lot longer than this. Tyrant Judge Mary Brown is unilaterally choosing to punish him, not only financially, but punish him as a father, because he has been speaking out about this abuse that has been taking place in her court, the abuse that Anne Georgulas, and by the way, Anne Georgulas' attorney as well. I will get to her in just a minute too. Both parents to complete all necessary intake and with forensic counseling within 15 days so that visits may begin. This is a tyrant judge who is ordering this. None of this stuff needs to take place. Now we have the Amicus attorney. And this Amicus attorney is Stacy Dunlop. Now let me speak about Stacy Dunlop, because 2 years ago when I was watching Stacy Dunlop in the courtroom, Stacy Dunlop took a video of Anne Georgulas taking James away from Jeff at a school function. and he froze the frame, and he tried to make it look like somehow Mr. Younger was a bad parent. What was really happening is that Anne Georgulas was interfering with child custody. He had child custody at the time. She was interfering with it. That is a state jail felony, and Stacy Dunlop completely messed up on that. So I questioned him about that. I brought him 2503, and you could see he just like had an oh crap look on his face. Like somehow maybe I've been discovered. Now Stacy Dunlop, one of his jobs is to make sure Mr. Young used to have to consult Stacy Dunlop to make sure that it was okay to give James a haircut. This is nothing but again another financial plundering. Stacy Dunlop. I thought at the beginning he was going to be good, but when I saw what he did with that 2503 and Stacy Dunlop, look, this is easy money for Stacy, very easy money. So he wants to. He's very glad. I'm sure that Stacy is probably thank you, Tyrant Judge Mary Brown, for what you've done here. But Stacy Dunlop, she says, is necessary to ensure the safety and welfare of the children and that their best interests are being served. This again is complete nonsense. The children have never been unsafe. The children have been completely safe with Mr. Younger. The welfare has been taken care of, and their best interests are being served. Once again, I would like to know if Tyrant Judge Mary Brown could please define what the best interest of the child actually means. She can't. Now she's trying to act a little bit more equitable here. Both parents are ordered to pay a $5,000 retainer for the services of Mr. Dunlop by August the 15th, 2021, and to pay 50% of the Amicus fees thereafter. So as you can see, Stacy Dunlop, this is a very lucrative position for him to become an Amicus attorney. This is a stupid position in many instances, and it's a completely unnecessary position. Tyrant Judge Mary Brown is strictly doing this to make sure that the system perpetuates itself. Stacy Dunlop, the Amicus attorney, he's going to get at least, it looks like I think that they're each paying $5,000 for the services, so that would be $10,000 plus 50% of the Amicus fees. I would wonder if Stacy Dunlop, I mean, really, when you get a phone call and you get to charge $50 or $100 or an email or something like that, this is complete abusiveness. It's a plundering of individuals' assets. Report back upon request for review and compliance and progress with these orders. Now, it's interesting how somehow Tyrant Judge Mary Brown is going to be the one to review compliance and progress with these orders. I would love to be able to maybe talk about Tyrant Judge Mary Brown's daughter and see how she looks. I think that maybe what we should do is order that Mary Brown's daughter, and I believe she has a daughter, that maybe she be going to counseling services, that maybe Mary Brown be forced to pay an Amicus attorney to make sure that the safety and welfare of her child is being taken care of and that the best interests of her child are being served. And by the way, the best interest of the child, something that I or somebody else would make up and that she would have no say in the matter. So this is really the stripping, the deprivation of parental rights. It's really the severing of parental relationships. And then the court reserves ruling on Ms. Georgulas' request for attorney fees, Ms. Janicek to draft the order. Now, Ms. Janicek she is another person that I think is simply terrible. I would call her the child castration queen. First we handcuff them, then we castrate them. This is Jennifer Janicek, and she works for the Koons Fuller Law Firm. The Koons Fuller Law Firm is, in my opinion, one of the most unethical law firms that I have seen. There's been a couple of people that I've known that have dealt with them, and other people that have told me that they had to let them go because of who they are. This is my opinion that they are unethical. And this is Jessica Janicek. This is her face anyway. Now, the body may not be hers, but when I call her the child castration queen, that's exactly what I mean. She has been arguing that it's okay, that this is serving the best interest of the child is to let the mother transition the child, that somehow the mother knows the best interest of the child, the father knows nothing. Any father will protect their children. That's part of our job, our roles as a father. But this, and I would say feminist, just, by the way, she charges $400 an hour, and she considers herself to be cheap in comparison to the other ones. She's very reasonable. But I call her the child castration queen, and she, again, is from Koons Fuller Law Firm. They think that she's a great woman, but she is the one who is to draft the order. So anyway, that's what's going on with Mr. Jeff Younger. There will be things coming up. By the way, so that this is not going to be misreported, the stuff that will be coming up will have absolutely Mr. Younger is not going to be consulted about this. There will be other people that will be doing this. And maybe I would be considered one of Mr. Younger's employees or whatever. That's not the case. I'm not an employee of Mr. Younger. I'm not somebody who is who's being controlled by Mr. Younger, who's being told what to do by Mr. Younger. We're doing something apart from Mr. Younger's knowledge so that when this comes up, the castration queen, Jessica Janicek, and the confused pediatrician, Anne Georgulas, they can know that none of this stuff happened by Mr. Younger's direction. This is happening apart from Mr. Younger, but we will be addressing this issue further in the future. But that's right now what's taking place in our wicked, corrupt, tyrannical, evil, immoral, unjust, bloody Texas anti-family courts in Dallas, Texas, with Tyrant Judge Mary Brown in the 301st Judicial District Court. And that's it for right now.